It's July 11th, 2015. We're here with Randy Folsom from Fort Walton Beach up in the Panhandle. Randy, I understand you were born and educated in Alabama.
Yes, I'm from Mobile, Alabama. I was born in Tuscaloosa, but spent most of my education years in Mobile. And then in high school in middle school we started band, and continued high school to college. I went to Troy University in Alabama also, so all my education is there.
What instrument did you start on?
Trumpet.
And
I went to, was actually supposed to play clarinet, and by chance, my family, I'm not sure we could afford a clarinet, so my cousin had a trumpet, so I had to go back the next day and say, I'm playing trumpet. The rest is history.
That seems to have worked out quite well for you. How did you begin your teaching career in Florida at Crestview if you had all this education and life in Alabama?
Well, Troy University is only like an hour from the border. I mean, for us, it's only 2 hours away. So it's very easy to hear and interact with bands in Northwest Florida. So just hearing about the job and from connections, and was lucky enough to get the job.
Wonderful. Tell us a bit about your Crestview years. You were there for 6 years.
Yes. Dave Cadle was the band director there, and I was his assistant for 4.5 years. And Dave actually said when he interviewed me that I was probably the worst interview he'd ever seen. And for some reason, Dave had mercy on me and hired me, and it was very fortunate for me because the people I met in Crestview and Dave himself were so patient with my ignorance and youth, and I hopefully grew up a lot during those years, and they were very patient, parents and students too, but I have a lot of connections still there, and cherish those years very much. Actually, the reason it's only 4.5 years was because I followed the legend Joe Hooten at Richburg Middle School, actually junior high then, and that's probably one of the toughest things I've ever had to do is go to Richburg and follow that guy. Really had a fantastic band there, and after that 1.5 years that I spent at Richburg, I decided when they switched to middle school that it might be better for me to go somewhere else, and Ernest Hepson had seen my work and he needed an assistant, so he invited me to come down to Fort Walton and make the change. So I had some great years in Crestview and learned a lot, and it was nice to go to Fort Walton and be with Ernest.
Wow, yes. Wow, must have been quite a mentor for you.
All those people were. And there's even people in the Crestview community, parents and other teachers there. One I'll mention, James Connor, who just passed away this year, actually did the color guard and did computer science at the junior high, was a really great mentor and has been to a lot of band directors. So, and he's known and adjudicated all over our state in the area of color guard. I think a lot of people will know that name when they hear it, but he's a good friend and a great just life mentor. So.
Well, what do you particularly like about the Panhandle that's kept you there?
Well, I think I don't know, I haven't lived in any other part of Florida, so it's hard to compare, but I do like it because it's just the natural beauty there. We do a lot of things on the water, so it's right there, and it's like a small town feel, and that's nice. There's still a lot of community involvement in all of the schools. I think that's a big deal there. And there's just so many people and part of that community that have welcomed us and made us a part of it. There's just no way we would even think about leaving. And my wife, of course, teaches at the school too. Actually, she's the testing coordinator at our school now, and so we've both been invested in that school, and our kids have gone through the school system there. So it's a big deal, and we're not far from home. My family's in the next county over the state line in Alabama, so we're close to home too. So
I'm hearing a lot of the community's important, the family's important,
yes.
Those continuing ties are important. If a young director were to go into a school and feel alienated from the community. How could they become more involved? What would you suggest?
I don't know, because I was fortunate enough that these people didn't allow me to be alienated. These are the kind of people who would come and see you and take you under their arm and under their wing, and show you the way and give you advice, and it was just so welcoming that it just made all the difference. As far as a young director goes, I would just be open to going and doing things in the community. Go to church, go to community events, get to know people, take your band and be a part of, if there's parades, go be in the parade. It may not be the most convenient thing for you, but if they're having a community event and you can work it in your schedule, go be a part of it. And you'll start to meet more people. They'll support the band, and it'll just be it'll make a big difference.
Great, that's great advice. What kind of challenges did you encounter as a director? You said you had been an assistant or an associate director, and then you were an independent director, and then, so what sort of challenges did you face?
I always considered my biggest challenge, and the biggest thing I had to learn to begin with, was how to treat kids. I was pretty rough on, and I'm still pretty demanding. But you change, especially what happens is when you have your own kids. You start to go, well, I'm not sure I want somebody treating my kids this way. So you start to back up and think about exactly how you approach kids and what they might be thinking. So over the time there, as I was growing and I gained a family and a wife and kids, I was steadily growing and maturing as far as the way I treated students. And I think we always have our mishaps, but I think I'm in a much better place now than I was when I first started teaching. And I'm sure there's kids that'll attest to that. But they still, students, I was very fortunate in the communities that I've taught in, parents cherish and value teachers who are tough on their kids, most of them. And so that's been an advantage. So it's kind of gotten me through that. And a lot of times the parents will come and talk to you individually and go, you might want to try something different. So I've had a lot of good advice that way too. Okay.
Well, you have taught with and followed some strong legacies.
Yes.
How did that work out?
It's just been, I was very fortunate. It's like I would say it's a blessing from God that I was placed at Crestview, because I learned so much there, and then on with for Dave Cadle, and from Joe Hooten, and from Ernest Hepson, just to be there, and not even just those people, but the other schools around there, and the retired directors that have been through there through the years have always made themselves very available to the directors in that area to get help. I mean, you can ask for help, and every one of them I learned from. But of course, the main one being Ernest Hepson, who I watched work every single day of his career, and that it was, I tell people, it's like going to graduate school again, to be able to be there and to see how he did things, and it was just fantastic.
He's such a gracious gentleman. Your schools have a strong history of success, musical success. Have you felt extreme pressure to continue that?
Not really. I think it's more of a I love music very much, and of course you want to play great music, and others, there's great music at all levels, but even on my trumpet, on my individual instrument, I wanted to play. I wanted to really go through it and play what I could play. I wanted to see what my maximum was. I never really felt pressure. It was just like a challenge, and that's what keeps you going every day. You put this music, and we don't make it. There's a few times that we've made it almost unreasonable, and maybe pay the price a little bit. But for the most part, when you put a goal like that in front of a bunch of kids, they're going to rise to the occasion most of the time. And if you help them along the way, like you should, and encourage the right things, most of the time they'll rise to the occasion and play that level of music. So it's of course part of the culture now over the 40 years of that school, more than 40 years now. It's just part of the culture. I think if I went into that symphonic band and gave them a little bit less than what they're used to, they would say something. So they expect it, and they expect that they're going to have to work hard to do it. Of course, from year to year, we'll have to adjust that, and from different standpoints as far as the personnel go. But for the most part, we've always been able to do it. And I don't see it as pressure. I'd see it as just a puzzle to solve, a musical puzzle to solve, if you will.
That's a great way to put it.
It's just a new challenge. And you have these lists of music that you want, your bucket list. You want to go through that bucket list and be able to say when you retired you played this great music, and not only just to say that, but to experience the performance of it and the whole leading up to the performance, the whole rehearsal part of it.
So selection of appropriate literature and literature that fits the group is critical.
Yes. We're already assessing, and I think most band directors do, they assess what they're going to have coming back next year, and you start to, think casually at first, what pieces we might think about, and then you start looking at scores and listening to the kids mainly too, because that's an important part too. You can't just listen to the kids in class. You've got to be able to spend time with them after school individually and know how they play, really know what their attitude is towards working harder, and to know whether or not they have that desire. And it gives you time individually, it gives you time to instill that desire in them, or to encourage it. So.
Do you now have an associate director, or do you have a team of people that come in, or are you all by yourself?
I have an associate director. His name is Derek Fields, and he's young and excited, and just like I was 30 years ago. So we really rely on that youthful input and to make things for the kids so they can experience that young outlook. I think, I don't want to call myself old, but a lot of things that we do, I've been there and done that. So it's maybe not as exciting just from an exterior point of view. I mean, it's a challenge for me, and I'm excited about the challenge. But from influencing the kids, it really, somebody that's closer to their age, it really gives them somebody to latch onto and to be encouraged by. So I let those people, I did it when I was that age, and so I let those people step up and do the same thing. So it makes a big difference. And we have staff that work with color guard and other percussion staff, so it's
great.
It's been great.
Well, you've talked about some pivotal people, but I'd like to know more about the band directors you've had through the years, and also maybe some pivotal moments that have happened.
My middle school band director, of course, just allowing me to not have to play clarinet was probably a big moment, because trumpet, I still play the trumpet almost every single day. And just that one day where that decision was made probably changed my life, because the trumpet has been such a joy in my life. I can't imagine it's by my podium every single day. In fact, for the young directors, if you can, on your instrument, learn to play the score, the conductor score on your instrument, transpose every line that you can, and to be able to express to students how that line should be played. That's a thing that I started developing early when I was teaching at Richburg and through the years, and now I'm to the point where I can play just about I can play every line in the score, with maybe just a few mistakes here and there, but when I get ready to, and I can sing too, but when they can hear their director play a certain line a certain way, it's much more meaningful to me than words could be. I mean, it shows them from experience how it can be. But so the trumpet was, and it's such a lyrical instrument anyway, so that to me made all the musical difference from the very, very start. And I tell my students this all the time. I started out last chair in the beginning band for a long time. It was because I was home fooling around, playing music on the radio, but I was playing by ear.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't progressing in the book like I should have been, but I was playing, my ear was developing big time just from playing music off of records and the radio or whatnot. And so that made a big difference. Well, when I figured out finally, I'm tired of being last chair, I started practicing the right thing, and all of a sudden I took off. So that's a really, don't give up on your last chair students, because they could end up being really great musicians. And then on to high school, I had, unfortunately we had, but they all gave us something different. We had 3 different band directors in 4 years in high school. But they're all great guys and great musicians. And I learned a lot from all of them. And we played really good music in high school. So that got it started as far as wanting to play good quality music. Mm-hmm. And then I went to Troy University and studied there under Dr. Long, who was a very enthusiastic person. And in fact, I would say that's probably the main thing that you learn from him. He teaches you a lot of really practical things. But his enthusiasm for life, his enthusiasm for music and for students is unparalleled. And I think I got a lot. And that's one of the main things I take from that experience. I will say that Dr. Long, back then, I'm not sure they still do it or not, but in the summers they brought in for graduate work, they would bring in famous band directors. I mean, they had Harry Bejan. They had, when I was there, they had, for 2 summers, I studied under Dr. Ravelli from University of Michigan. That was also very life-changing, because you continually meet these people and the bar gets raised higher and higher, and his level of expectation was pretty high. And you learn more and more every time you go through something like that. You learn what you don't know, and that's one of the things I've always tried to do, is figure out what I don't know, try to shore up my weaknesses, and just constantly try to make it better. Mm-hmm. And so Dr. Ravelli was a big influence. I mean, there were small classes, and we got to eat lunch with the guy, and we're talking about one of the legends of the history of band. Mm-hmm. And he in turn taught us about the history of bands in America, and he knew everybody in his youth and all the way through. So many stories and so many things that I took from those 2 summers were just fantastic. And then to go back to school and be with Ernest just kept it going, kept it steamrolling.
Mm-hmm. Well, now we come to the heart of the interview, which is your words of wisdom and advice that you want to pass on. You had already mentioned that it's important to invest in the community. Mm-hmm. Expand on that a bit and tell us some other things that you hope directors pick up. Well,
the support system that I have, and I still say it's a blessing from God, is the support system is incredible. I mean, I have my family. My wife has always been there for me. She's here now waiting on me to she's always been there waiting on me, but she's always supported me at the school. She teaches at the school with me, and she's always been there to help run interference with administrators, because she's in that part of the school, and she puts a really good face on the program, and she helps me in a great way to do that. And that's been a big thing. Having a family that supports you is huge. And we learned a lot by the model we had from Ernest and Ann Hebson. I mean, Ann was always there with the band, going places, and Gail has done the same thing, and it's just been fantastic. It makes a huge difference. So when you're with the band, if they're there, you don't feel like you're away from home. Your home is there. And the kids also grew up with the band. My 2 boys, even when they were little, they went on band trips with us. They were on the bus. The kids babysitted them. Mm-hmm. And so it was, the family was there. So it was we all just got in there and did it. So that made a huge difference in the enjoyment of it.
You never had to make a choice between band, family, and community, because it was all one.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I'm sure they at times might have felt differently, but because to them, I'm sure it was very tedious to give that up. But they just, to me, their love for me and their willingness to do that is inspirational. I mean, it's just fantastic. And the people in our community that have invested in that program, there's alumni that still keep up with the band, alumni parents that still would, if we needed help on the concession stand, we could call them and they would come help. So it's just a great place. But all this was developed over years and years of the history of that school. It's just been a fantastic thing to be in the continuing end of it. So in the 11 supported my parents who taught me what hard work was and to never give up, and our faith in God, and it makes you look to a higher standard than what's around you every day. It makes you think there are bigger things than just us. I mean, and it makes a huge difference in your outlook and the way you conduct yourself every day.
Right. And I know you feel that music helps you touch that faith.
Right. Music is, and I said this, somebody gave me you get coffee cups from kids. She's still there. We had a student that gave me a coffee cup that says, music is the language of the soul. Well, it truly is. What other language is there that speaks from the heart, speaks from the soul? It's God's gift to us to express ourselves. It's probably the closest thing we have to heaven on earth. That is, when it's played well. There's a lot of our performances, I'm sure people would not necessarily think that, but there are moments like at a state festival when we're just nailed it down and we've worked hard, that you can just feel it, and it's just, there's nothing better.
Oh, I just got goosebumps. Okay, that's sort of about your personal character.
I would say to younger directors, if I were to go back and be in charge of a music ed program, I would try to run it the way Ernest's program was running when he had it in college, because he had, before he graduated college, I don't know, I think he mentions it on his legacy talk, he had to learn every instrument before he graduated. And I think more than just the class brass and the class woodwinds, you need to take private lessons while you're at that college from those college professors as much as you can to learn those other instruments if you're going to teach them. And when you get out, continue to study the instruments. Every summer I try to pick up another instrument and try to get better at it other than just trumpet. So it makes a big difference in your teaching.
Well, what do you try to instill in your students in order for them to be able to achieve these high-quality music performances?
Well, the love of music is, but don't really approach it that way initially. But we teach hard work and what hard work, the goal achieving. And we said, I think most people do, they said at the beginning of the year you have goals. And it's to perform to the highest level you can, and to remind them what that feeling is going to be when they turn in a good performance. I said, like when we're rehearsing now, next week when we go out there and we start that marching show, you should constantly try to visualize, where am I going to be in October when I go to the FBA District Marching Festival? What are we doing now to make that moment a real moment that I'll remember? And you just have to constantly remind people, this is what you're working for. You're not doing this for now. You're going to get better every time we rehearse. And when you go home and practice, you're going to get better, a little bit better every time. But if you keep October in mind, what is this going to be like? How are people going to react to this performance? And how am I going to feel about this performance in October? Have I paid the price? Have I prepared myself? So if you constantly keep that vision, I think you work a lot more efficiently. I think you work a lot harder. And when you get to that moment, you go, that's what did it.
How important is time management?
Very important. I can't say that I'm always on top of that, but the biggest thing I have to be wary about, and I think a lot of people that I know, is that when you become so motivated to do well, you need to manage your time so that you have downtime. And even Dr. Ravelli would tell us, when you go home every day, you need to take your musical bath. Go home and listen to the best recording that you can find, and remind yourself what real music sounds like, because you've just heard high school or middle school kids. So you got to constantly keep that frame of reference in your mind. You got to take your musical bath. But not only that, but also to have time to just do nothing, because it recharges you. Time to do just what you want to do. I think that's probably the most difficult thing to do, is to find time to just veg. And it's because it's not in your nature to do that. You're just, most band directors, most musicians
Mm-hmm.
that are motivated, they want to just continue to stay after it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, what do you do you've taught 33 years now. What do you do to keep your edge, to keep it fun and exciting for you?
Well, young people motivate me. I mean, my young staff, my young students, every time I see somebody get better, it's just exciting. I mean, I see a kid go from unmotivated to motivated, and it just motivates me, because you had an influence on that student. And I think that's where, over the years, I've gotten a lot better. And as far as the maturing process goes, I'm not so performance oriented, but I just want to see a student turned on to just getting a little bit better, and to see the light in their eyes when they go, I can do this, and you show them that they can do this, and it just that's the spark right there. That's what allows us to play a grade 6 in May, is that little bit of improvement that some student might make, that just steamrolls into them just taking off as a musician.
Mm-hmm. That's great, and it's wonderful that you can be part of that.
Yep.
Predict for me, or for all of us, what your retirement is going to be like when you eventually do that.
I don't know, I've had several things roll around in my mind. Sometimes I say that I would like to learn how to repair instruments and just be in a room somewhere by myself, but just repair horns, because I think I could learn how to do it and do a good job. But I hope really that I can just, I've always thought about teaching adjunct. If an opportunity comes up, I could do that. But it would be nice, I think, if I have the resources, just to volunteer. Hopefully, when I retire, I'll have the resources to just volunteer to teach music, or volunteer to do whatever in the community.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's paying it forward.
So hopefully, we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Well, we only have a few minutes left to our half hour, and you had mentioned some interesting things that had happened with you and Mr. Hebson and your concert bands at State in various years. Can you tell us some of those stories?
It was very fortunate for me to teach the concert band. I think I taught it for 14 years at Fort Walton. And of course, that was if you think about it, it was my laboratory. I mean, that was my chance to make mistakes and to learn and apply and the whole thing. And they're, of course, not the best players in the program, so you really are faced with what the average school might be. I mean, I don't know. But there are a couple of funny things. When you start taking yourself too seriously, students will usually remind you about how this is not the biggest thing that's ever happened on the face of the earth. And a couple of those things is, we usually took concert band to State. We usually made excellent ratings. And that was usually, if we made excellent ratings, that we were just ecstatic. I mean, we wanted to make superiors, but we weren't always up to it. But there was one story where we were in Ruby Diamond. Of course, it's such a fantastic place to be and play. And the moment is huge to me. I mean, I'm a young director, it's a state festival. Well, I forget what we're playing, but it was something really lyrical and pretty. And the cymbals fall off the cymbal stand in the back, and of course roll across the long part of the stage. And you know what cymbals do when they finally get to their resting place? It goes whoa, 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 whoa. And this is in Ruby Diamond in front of all my all the gods of band in the back. And it was just, I look, I was probably mortified at the time, and I don't think I chose. I just said stuff happens. I didn't chew out the kid. But looking back on it now, it's just hilarious.
Well, you also did Korean folk songs.
Yeah, there's another story. We were with a concert band. We were in Jacksonville. State used to be in Jacksonville, and we're on stage there. And of course, the tempo block part is the big part for percussion in that piece. And I had a young percussion student who played the tempo block part, and all the rehearsals we had it down. We thought we were ready to go, and I get to the place in the music where all that starts, and I look up, and it's not going well. Or I listen, and it's not going well. I look over there, and he's, instead of facing me, he's facing out into the audience, like his parents are there or something. But thinks he's the soloist in Carnegie Hall, and he is going to town playing that tempo block part, and it's nothing to do with what the band's playing. So I'm sure we were all rolling our eyes at the time. But now it's just hilarious.
Mm-hmm. God does pick up that pin and prick our egos every once in a while.
As soon as you start thinking you're the man, something's going to humble you. Happens every time.
Well, I guarantee you are the man, and we appreciate you. And I've just had a delightful time with this Legacy interview.
Thank you.
But unfortunately, our half hour is gone, and it's time to say bye-bye.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.